Chelsea are looking to pick up Mike Mignon on a free transfer potentially next season, but is it too little too late? Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sink, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And instead of looking at the here and now, today we're going to look forward a little bit, right, into solving one of the main issues that we have had for a really, really long time. Chelsea's goalkeeper situation has been shaky, to say the least, since we lost Thibaut Courtois, and obviously he kind of forced that move out to Real Madrid, and then we ended up with Kepa Arrizabalaga. And then since then has been the cycle of myriad goalkeepers, and every time we looked like close to getting the right one, or things looked like they were going to be okay. I say every time, basically one time things fell through. The only kind of solid keeper we've had in all of this time was Edouard Mendy, and Mendy ended up being like a one-season wonder, essentially. Like, obviously, he was there when we won the Champions League, had an absolutely great season, and then was posthumously sold very shortly after Bluco took over. It was, just a bit of a mad one, wasn't it, really? So, what's our goalkeeper since Thibaut Courtois? It was Courtois. Then we got Kepa, who we paid an outrageous amount of money for, who has now found himself at Arsenal after all this time. Then we brought in Edouard Mendy. In and around that, Willy Caballero actually ended up getting quite a lot of game time. And obviously now we are lumbered with the likes of Robert Sanchez and Philip Jorgensen as our number one keepers. Jordi Petrovic came in and did a really good job under Pochettino, and a lot of Chelsea fans were not exactly buzzing to, when he ended up getting sold as well, because with our goalkeeper situation being what it is, it felt like, here's an option that we already have, but lo and behold, it wasn't meant to be. So we've reached full Stockholm syndrome with the Robert Sanchez situation, haven't we? It's just and I say that based on something I've seen a couple of my fellow commentators say, and something that I feel myself, is that after seeing Philip Jorgensen in the sticks for the last couple of games, we're looking forward to seeing Robert Sanchez back. What is that? How did we get here, man? How did we get here? So Robert Sanchez obviously was just sent off and has just served his one-match ban, which is weird, because I guess it doesn't actually make a difference, because he wouldn't have played that Lincoln game anyway. So I guess at the end of the day, the ban itself wasn't really an issue. But it's just been a it's been an absolute roller coaster with Robert Sanchez, hasn't it? And the fact that we're even thinking about looking forward to him coming back now just sort of says how far our expectations have dipped, because we are looking at Sanchez as the best option we've got. But as far as the actual barometer for what a good goalkeeper is, most of us, he's definitely improved a lot recently. But that red card was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So that brings us to Mike Mignon now. In the summer just gone, they had a special early 10-day transfer window that was open in order to allow clubs competing in the Club World Cup in order to try and get new reinforcements for the competition. And that is when we signed João Pedro and Liam Delap, and, that was cool. And the other big story of that little window, before the actual big proper one opened, was we were in for Mike Mignon, the goalkeeper from AC Milan, French international goalkeeper. And it came down to money at the end of the day, which seems ridiculous now when you think about how much money we've spent on these other players, man. But we wanted to pay 8 mil, 10 mil or something, and they wanted 20 plus, and we were like, no, absolutely not, we're not doing it. So what the gamble on that is that Mike Mignon's only got 1 year left on his deal, which is one of the reasons why it was going to be so cheap, regardless of him actually being a pretty good goalkeeper. So what's happening now is it has come out that AC Milan's efforts to re-sign Mike Maignan on a new deal have fallen through, and it looks like one way or the other he will be leaving at the end of the season. So this leaves us with a couple of opportunities, doesn't it? Now, the thing that puts Chelsea in the driving seat for the Mike Maignan deal is we've already agreed personal terms. We'd already agreed personal terms with him when we tried to sign him in June. So at the end of the day, we don't have to do all of that negotiating and stuff. If Mike Mignon wants to come to Chelsea, as soon as the 2nd January hits, he can just say, yep, cool, sign the contract straight away, and it will be done really, really, really quickly, because there won't be a huge amount in the way of negotiation to do with him, because we've already agreed personal terms. Now, whether those personal terms are going to change or not, I don't know. I would imagine if he wants to secure the move, he'd probably just sign the deal. He wanted to come to Chelsea and was ready to sign the deal in June anyway, so that wouldn't be a problem. The other option, depending on how things go, is we could potentially pay a small amount of money in January to get Mike Mignon out of AC Milan at that point. And you even think, you know, something like if we can free up a loan spot, maybe even loaning someone like Philip Jorgensen to AC Milan to facilitate that deal, and then paying a really small amount for him, like 2 or 3 mil or whatever, because he's only got 6 months on his contract, depending how desperate we are at the time, or even sending Robert Sanchez over there. They can buy Robert Sanchez for, you know, we got him for 20 mil. His value will have decreased. If they pay 15 mil for Robert Sanchez and we get Mike Maignan out of that, then maybe that's something that could happen as well. Now, that is all speculation. The January stuff, pure speculation on my part. What isn't speculation is that Mike Maignan has categorically said, no, I'm not signing a deal with AC Milan. I'm going to leave at the end of the season. And as per the rules, basically when you've got 1 year left on your contract, when it gets to January, you can then sign a deal with whoever you want on that free transfer, right? So there are some opportunities there. Like, so what that tells me as well is that the Mike Penders thing, he'll probably get another loan at Strasbourg for another year. And if I'm completely honest, I think that's a good idea. I've seen a couple of guys in my comments and a few people on the live streams and stuff being like, bring Mike Penders back in now, let him be the number 2. And I'm like, being a number 2 goalkeeper is a really rough job, man. Do you know what I mean? It's like, look at Philip Jorgensen, for instance. Philip Jorgensen is not getting any game time, so it's not exactly a surprise that he's struggling when we actually need to call upon him. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's not like an outfield player where he's almost guaranteed to get game time. For the most part, goalkeepers can play almost every game in a season. Do you know what I mean? You know, Philip Jorgensen might have played what? I don't know, even with Robert Sanchez being dropped like 10 games last season, something like that, maybe a little bit more. I'll need to look that one up, I guess. But at the same time, being a backup goalkeeper is not like being Yoro Hato, where you know that Marc Cucurella is going to need a rest every now and again, so you know you're going to get minutes. At the end of the day, Robert Sanchez could play the majority of the games this season. And if Robert Sanchez is playing the games this season and he's not at the level we want him to be and we really need someone in the sticks, then bringing Mike Maignan in January might not be a terrible idea. Goalkeepers is so important, man. It's like we talk about centre-backs and we talk about everything, but goalkeepers are literally the foundation of your team in terms of like, if you have trust in your goalkeeper to do the things that need to be done and you're not worried about him making silly errors or little mistakes and stuff, that makes everyone in front of him play a little bit better. That was definitely one of the issues for me last year with Sanchez. Sanchez was making the defence play worse because the defence were having to think a little bit more about, oh, wow, yeah, well, if the ball gets past me, then Rob's got to deal with it. And then we'll have to, you know, we've got to make sure that doesn't happen. If you can trust your goalkeeper, then things really, really change. For instance, taking a look at Man City, since they've got Donnarumma in, they already look better. Do you know what I mean? They already look better. Now, vis-a-vis Donnarumma, we'll try and keep this video quite goalkeeper-centric. I still back the decision not to go in for Donnarumma, if I'm completely honest, because it would have just created more problems than it solved at the end of the day. Like, Donnarumma's a wicked keeper, don't get me wrong. But if we are going to persist with Maresca wants a certain type of keeper. And that would have created similar problems to what we've got with Robert Sanchez. And also, Donnarumma wants huge money, man. And Man City are obviously willing to pay him that because they know they're in for titles now. Even though they're experiencing a bit of a drop and a dip, they want to buy the players that are going to get them to titles now. I've spoken about this many, many times, most recently on the Blue Lounge. I don't think Chelsea, the Blue Co and the owners and the brass and whatever, I don't think Chelsea's owners see us in a title challenge yet. Do you know what I mean? So I think if you bring Donnarumma in on 300k a week, then your players that are only on 160, 170, 180 are like, well, hold on. It's like we were told that you have to come into the team and play your way up to those sorts of wages, but you're just giving this guy those wages now. Obviously, there's a few, the one real example of that is not being the case in our team is Reece James, but Reece James was on his hefty contract before Blueco came in. And at the end of the day, that no one's really got an issue with Reece James being on that sort of money up there. He's the captain. He's an academy graduate superstar hero that we all absolutely love, and he is categorically one of our best players on the pitch when he's playing. So the Donnarumma thing, man, yes, obviously it would have been better than having Sanchez this season, don't get me wrong, but I think for the long term, it would have for things like Mike Penders, for instance, that would have put a fair few years in front of him getting into the first team. The money thing probably would have rubbed some other players up the wrong way. Team and squad harmony is really, really, really important. So that's why Mike Mignon kind of ticks all the boxes as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what I mean? So Mike Mignon is 30 already, like 30 plus already. So we're not looking at the next, 5 years or whatever of him being our goalkeeper. It's a stopgap move, which is what we need in order to allow Mike Penders to get more game time. Like I said, I think keep him out of Strasbourg, man, for the next season as well. I think that's a wicked shout. If we can get Maignan in, keep Mike Penders out there for another season or two, let him develop into a top goalkeeper, and then we bring him in when Mike Mignon is ready to either drop down to be our second keeper or move on. And it's weird, isn't it? Because one thing Chelsea have always classically had is a mature second or third goalkeeper, right? For a really, really long time, that was something that we had. Mark Schwarzer, Willy Caballero, Marcus Bettinelli was the most recent one of those, and he wasn't necessarily young at the time, but he wasn't like a first team player, and he's gone to do that role over at Man City now. Marcus Bettinelli, he's become their slightly mature third goalkeeper. So it is really important to have that role. Maybe Maignan would be up for sticking around at Chelsea and doing that. Maybe not. That we'll have to see in the future. But either way, you've got to think that Mike Maignan would be a better option than what we've got at the moment. He's already better at playing out from the back. He's more mature. He's, international level as well. Do you know what I mean? He's played for France. And, I think he's basically been the de facto goalkeeper since Hugo Lloris kind of got a little bit too mature in order to hold that role anymore. So, yeah, I'm kind of all for it, man. I'm kind of all for it. Mike Maignan is a good goalkeeper, and I am just terrified at the rest of the season with our two options being Sanchez and Philip Jorgensen. Sanchez kind of won his place back, do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, I think that had Sanchez not have played as well as he did in the Club World Cup, we may well have gone back in for Mike Maignan and paid that little bit of extra money, do you know what I mean? But I think that, he played so well in the final. We've seen spits and spats like against Bayern Munich, do you know what I mean? Making all these super saves and stuff. But then against Man United, you get yourself sent off in 4 minutes, and that literally just destroys a lot of that credibility, doesn't it? Instantly. To know that's even a possibility or even a thing, like how often do goalkeepers get sent off, man? Like literally, how often do you see a goalkeeper get sent off? It almost never happens. So it's absolutely crazy that we even found ourselves in this position in the first place. But yeah, guys, that's it. I'm just going to do a quite short one today about the goalkeeper situation. I think Philip Jorgensen is not the one. I also think Philip Jorgensen is not particularly happy with playing this bit part role for such, I say such a young keeper. He's like in his early 20s, but he's good enough to be playing somewhere, but just not at the level that we need him to be right now. Robert Sanchez is a 7 out of 10, 70% of the time, and 30% of the time is a 4 out of 10. And that is, that's just a very arbitrary, vague metric I'll just throw out there. But at the end of the day, the balance with Robert Sanchez is off, right? He's not good enough for long enough periods of time for us to really consider that, he's going to be the guy going forward. It's a little bit similar to actually the issues we had with Kepa at the start as well, wasn't it? Because Kepa turned out to be a reasonably good goalkeeper, but the issues were like confidence and errors and making mistakes and stuff, and that kind of permeated a lot of the time that he was at Chelsea. So, Mike Maignan, guys, tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think that we should just go in for him in January? I mean, obviously, there's still quite a lot of games between now and then, so Robert Sanchez has got some time to win us all back over again. But is it just too little too late for some of you, man? Do you think that, do you back the idea of getting Mike Maignan in as a stopgap goalkeeper, and then we give Mike Penders another loan to Strasbourg next season to get him more experience? Or do we persist with Robert Sanchez for the rest of this season, forget Mike Maignan, and just bring Penders straight in depending on how well he does? Do you know what I mean? I'd really like to know what you think. The goalkeeper is such a hot topic and an important role, and something that we've been kind of debating for a really long time as Chelsea fans, and we're ready to see this change, right? At the end of the day, two things you absolutely need. I mean, the spine, I say it's more than two, isn't it? But like, look at the majority of title-winning teams have an amazing goalkeeper. They have a really, really, really solid, strong centre-back, or at least centre-back partnership, but at least one really strong centre-back. And normally they've got a 20 goals a season marksman up top as well. Maybe we've got the marksman with João Pedro. He's obviously, if he were to continue his current trajectory, he would probably hit that, but, dips in form and fitness and this and that and the other. Obviously, we'll have to see what happens. We haven't got that centre back, and we absolutely don't have that goalkeeper. So if we are looking at building a title-winning team, getting a good proper solid goalkeeper is going to be a massive part of that. Is Mike Mignon that guy? It's not like AC Milan have been winning leagues left, right, front and centre either, is it? So like I say, really interested to know what you guys think in the comments. I'm going to wrap the video up there, guys. I'll catch up with you all very, very soon. Friday night, I will be streaming on the Blue Lounge. We're going to do a match preview for the Brighton game, and I imagine it to be another, not as heated as the last one, but it's probably, you know, we're going to have a lot to talk to, definitely a lot to talk about. So that's going to be a really interesting one. Make sure you come and catch up with me and Mo, obviously off the Blue Lounge and behind the dugouts. I'm not sure if needs eye on, but we might have a special guest for this one as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Nice one, guys. I hope you all have an absolutely wicked day, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.